Merry Christmas, everybody. This is Keith Helwig from Cops Corrections Videos. Today my subject is the more things change, the more they stay the same. Back in the late 70s when I started working in corrections, it was a kinder, gentler atmosphere. In fact, I didn't start as a correctional officer. I started as a correctional counselor. Even my paycheck said correctional counselor. Inmates were not inmates. Inmates were residents. Prisons weren't prisons. They were correctional facilities. It went so far as even in the maximum security institutions and any institutions which were uniformed, the uniforms went from a police-style uniform to a casual-style uniform, which included a blue or maroon blazer. There were no department or division patches on it except for a small one on the lapel, and it went to a blue shirt and blue pressed slacks. Well, the little social experiment with the uniforms lasted about 2 years before they suddenly realized that inmates didn't respect that. They respected the police-style uniform. So ultimately, they went back to the police-style uniform, the blue shirt with a patch on one side and an American flag on the other, with a silver nameplate, with collar, brass, with stripes on the sleeve, the whole 9 yards. Also, they started calling residents inmates again. And they started calling correctional officers correctional officers. So now here it is, 40 years later, and all of a sudden, the swing is going back the other way. One thing that I've noticed in talking to my friends that still work in a prison, inmates are no longer inmates in Wisconsin. They are called persons in our care, or persons in our custody. They're not inmates, persons in our custody. How ridiculous. They decided to do that because the governor and his staff decided that calling inmates was demeaning, and it created a certain amount of shame within those people. Well, I'm sorry, if you've committed a crime, you are an inmate. You are not a person in our care or a person in our custody. You're an inmate. And our society needs to put an element of shame in being a criminal, in being an inmate. You know, I always told my staff when I was a captain that inmates are in prison as punishment, not for punishment. It isn't our job as officers to punish inmates. That's being done through the deprivation of their freedom. However, to call inmates persons in our custody diminishes what crime does to our society. It diminishes the heinous acts that many of these individuals have committed over the course of time. Inmates are inmates, simple as that. And to say that it causes them shame or that it causes them embarrassment, if you're a criminal, you should be ashamed. You should be ashamed that that's how you make your life living, is preying upon others. Whether you're a thief, a rapist, a robber, a murderer, if you're an inmate, you are an inmate. Now that's not to say that that shame needs to stick with them their entire life. I've known a good many people who've done their prison terms and they've gotten out of the prisons and they've made good productive members of society of themselves. And most of them aren't going to say, you know what, I'm an ex-person in our custody. They're going to say, I'm an ex-inmate and I turned my life around, because it's something they're proud of, that they're able to turn their life around. And part of the prison process is rehabilitation, so we need to give them the opportunity to do that. But as I said in the beginning, the more things change, the more they become the same. Are we going back in that direction where all of a sudden inmates aren't inmates? That there's not supposed to be any shame in committing a crime? That there's not supposed to be any type of public attitude towards inmates? There needs to be. We need to bring back the shame of being a criminal. That's not something that we need to heap upon them once they've committed their sentence. But if they've committed a crime, they need to bear the consequences of that. You know, calling them an inmate, that's what they are. They are inmates. We need to remember that, but we need to remember that they're human as well. We need to treat them as human as well. However, an inmate is an inmate. Calling them persons in our care or persons in our custody diminishes the seriousness of their crime. It diminishes the impact that it has on the victims of crimes. It's time that we quit being politically correct and we call a spade a spade. An inmate is an inmate, no matter how you color it. Until next time, this has been Keith Helbig from Cops Corrections. Stay safe and watch your back.